I have a fascinating job, and I've been trying to get more and more people who, with different voices, different abilities, on our stage to reach all of us at different places. And as that's happened, I've wanted more outlets to get content that I have that's coming into my mind, which is why I started briantome.com, a year or so ago, and why I've started a new podcast called The Aggressive Life. The other things, if you want to kind of keep in touch with some of the things that God might be putting in my mind, you can go subscribe at briantome.com and The Aggressive Life. It's a brand new podcast that is out. It's doing very, very, very well. Why The Aggressive Life? I mean, that almost sounds like awful. Isn't aggression bad? Isn't that an awful thing? No, it's not. Now, if you search through the entire Bible and you try to find the word aggression, you're not going to find it. You're not going to find it. You're neither going to find the word empathy. You're not going to find that anywhere in the Bible. You're not going to find delayed gratification. You're not going to find racial reconciliation. Obviously, we need to be empathetic. We need to delay our gratification, and we need to be about racial reconciliation, obviously. But those single buzzwords don't actually pop up. But aggression is throughout the entire Bible, even if the word itself isn't there. Every single Bible hero is a hero because of something aggressive they did. When I talk about aggression, I'm not talking about squashing someone down with your physical might. I'm not talking about taking advantage of somebody with your financial might. I'm talking about there's something over there that needs to happen. I'm going to aggressively pursue it. Every single hero in the Bible has a story of aggression. Every prophet that brings forth what God wants them to say aggressively, we know about them. Prophets that may have been around that didn't speak because they were too passive, we don't know who they are. In the early church, there's a lot of people in the first generation of when Jesus was around who we don't really know much about. A lot of those people are because they just got really, really passive. Passivity is an epidemic in our culture today. We are incredibly passive. Young males are incredibly passive and don't have the aggressive attitude to ask somebody out on a date anymore. We're getting married later and later in life because we're passively waiting for our soulmate to come by, and it doesn't work out that way. You have to aggressively ask people out. Get to know them, get to know their story. Our country is incredibly divided because we're not aggressive enough. Now you go, what are you talking about? The people over on the extreme left are very aggressive. People over on the extreme right, they're very aggressive. Yeah, but actually, they're very passive inside of their own circles, and no one's aggressively stepping across the aisle and saying, now why do you believe that? No one's aggressively stepping in the other camp and saying, I need to understand why you feel this way. We're not doing that with one another. We were addicted to safety in our culture. Utterly addicted. We have a seatbelt, an airbag for everything. We stick helmets on our 3-year-olds who are on a tricycle in the basement. Not necessary, not needed. What happened to an America where 50 years ago we landed on a moon because there was an aggressive vision to put somebody on the moon? But now we just sit back. We sit back. We're drawn to socialism in our culture because the idea of just maybe sitting back and someone takes care of me instead of myself going after it becomes a very attractive option. Friends, I'm just saying this. For you to know God the way you want to know God, for you to have a life that works, you have to move. You have to aggressively go after things that are before you, and you have to aggressively be about your faith. When is the last time you aggressively tried a new way to pray? When's the last time you aggressively tried a new hobby? Most of us haven't tried a new hobby since we graduated from college. When's the last time you aggressively started a new Bible reading plan? What is the last new thing that you have done that you felt very uncomfortable, but it was aggressive? One of my favorite stories in the Bible is a story that people would say, I can't believe it's your favorite story because that person's a real jerk. He's not. It just shows how in Christendom has become so passive. We've had a decreasing influence and decreasing blessing of our culture because we are increasingly passive. We have left the aggressive faith of our forefathers and foremothers. So much so that we can't even understand a Bible story when we see it, such as the case with Jacob and Esau. Going way, way, way back in Bible history, we got this couple, they have twins, and out of the womb comes Esau and Jacob, twins. As Jacob comes out of the womb, he's grabbing onto the heel of his brother because he wants to be first. Because in that culture, the oldest male gets the lion's share of the inheritance. It's what's known as the birthright. And Jacob comes out of holding onto his heel. Some people say, well, yeah, the word Jacob means supplanter. No, it does not. The name Jacob, which is what his parents give him, is one who grasps the heel. Jacob, from the very beginning, is grasping the heel. He is aggressively trying to put his life forward. Now, as they age, Esau becomes the stereotypical manly man, and Jacob becomes the stereotypical mama's boy. Esau has hair all over his body. Esau is a hunter. He goes out and he starts hunting and he starts killing, and his dad loves him. He's got this kind of macho thing. Jacob, he's the cooker. He's the one who's around mom. One day, when Esau is coming in, he runs across Jacob, who has parked himself right on the side of the trail with his special recipe stew that he knows his brother loves. His brother comes back and says, oh, I'm hungry. I'm dying. Let me have some of that stew. Jacob says, Get me a stew. I'll tell you what, how about a deal? Esau says, what kind of deal? You know, a deal. How about a deal? How about, by the way, talk about new aggressive things. Yes, I'm wearing new shoes. Some of you are really bothered, but what are these new? I wear anything new. The amount of emails I get is ridiculous. Yes, I have a friend who works with Adidas, and he gave me these cool shoes. I have them, you don't. Thank you very much. So Jacob says, you give me the birthright, and I will give you a stew. Give you a stew. Esau goes, oh, okay, I'll do it. He does that. Many people in churches get all up in arms. Oh, this is awful. Shouldn't Jacob just give him the stew? I mean, this is awful. Aren't we supposed to be givers? Yes, we are supposed to be givers. We should all be givers. And there's nothing wrong with business. All of us in here put food on the table because there's transactions that are happening somewhere behind the scenes that enable us to get a paycheck. Jacob he's not swindling, he's not lying, he's just going, how about a deal? I'll give you the stew. And Esau says, okay. Now, what's fascinating about this is when you look in the New Testament portion of the Bible, the book of Hebrews, if there's any blame to be had at all, it is squarely put on Esau, not Jacob, but us as passive church-going Americans often can't see this. So I'm going to read this for you. Hebrews 12, chapter 14 to 16. We'll look at it one verse at a time. Strive for peace with everyone and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. Now, the word aggression isn't anywhere in the Bible, but striving is a form of aggression. Strive for peace. Be aggressive to be at one with people who are different than you. See to it that no one else fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it many become defiled. Those of us who are bitter in here today, you know why we're bitter? Because you're passively allowing the past to define you. You're bitter because you're passively just thinking evil thoughts of the people who have hurt you, instead of aggressively loving your enemies. That takes aggression. Aggressively praying for your enemies. Jesus came to the earth and he aggressively opened up his arms and he died on a cross as a move of aggression. He came and did something so that you and I wouldn't have to be in a bitter place with God forever, and therefore you and I should not be in a bitter place with anybody else. And whenever we're bitter for any period of time, it's because we're passively out of the will of God, and God would tell us, get aggressive and get your heart back. And then the last verse, verse 16, that no one is sexually immoral or unholy like Esau, who sold his birthright for a single meal. Esau is unholy because he sold his birthright for a meal. He's the unholy one, not Jacob, the one who is aggressive. Jacob goes on with his life and he ends up wrestling God, literal wrestling match. And God jacks up his hip. And then God gives him a new name, Israel. And it's what the people of God are named Israel, which means God's fighter. God's fighter. Jacob, the one who is aggressive, the one who hustles, is who God names the entire movement of his people after. because he wants to see aggression. When I saw this, things started changing for me. For starters, I named my son Jacob because Jacob's one of the heroes in the Bible for me, and I named my son Jacob. I also decided to take on the Tome family motto is Tome's hustle. It's not Tome's think. It's not Tome's try. It's not Tome's look good for sure. It's Tome's hustle. Tome's hustle. If we're not going to get something done, it's never going to be because we don't hustle. And it's because of Jacob and every hero in the Bible I see that I said, if I make a mistake, and I make them, you all know that very well, I want it to be an aggressive mistake. Not a passive mistake, an aggressive mistake. Because when I make an aggressive mistake, though it may hurt me, I wish I didn't make any mistakes, but though it may hurt me, I've got 9 other aggressive things backing it up and have set me up that are going to more than overcome that. Friends, that's a big idea today. I want you to have a life of aggression. Faithfulness is next to aggression. Know what you want. Grab your life by the throat. Don't be content with your hang-ups that you have. Don't be content with your addictions that you have. No, don't be passive on your addiction. Go after it. Don't be content with just staying where you are in business, whatever that is. Don't be content with staying where you are with God. Aggressively push forward. That is a place of faithfulness and lush fruit.